Nice. Cool. I so I went to go take class with my teacher on Saturday morning, and I just walked in and I was just feeling like I just couldn't quite center myself. So I was like, okay, I have to sit upside down for a little bit. So I could put my legs up against the wall. And my teacher has been teaching in kind of an old church building that's in Lads. And I go and I lay down and I throw my legs at the wall and I look up above me and there's this carving of an angel staring down at me. And it was just like, why would I pick the one spot in this room? There's just like this thing. And so I'm like, well, this has to mean something. Like there's, I don't know. And I'm trying to figure out like, is she judging me? Is she mad at me? Am I being like smiled upon? And I can't figure it out. I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this. And then I just like, it was like, oh, I'm trying to like, I was trying to sort myself out. I was trying to like compartmentalize how I was feeling in the morning. And I'm just laying there and I'm looking up at this angel and I'm like, I have no idea what this like expression is from this angel. And I have no idea how to sort myself out and compartmentalize myself. But I'm here and I'm present. And there's something about being upside down that can be very grounding. It really brings you into the presence because your brain's like, oh, what, man, we're not usually oriented this way, what's going on? But so I'm just kind of like, okay, like there's an angel up there and there could be some meaning and I could derive some meaning from it and I may need to sort out my feelings, whatever there, but like I can just be here and just experience this and not tune it out and not have to have all of the answers. um, Svadyaya is self-study, and study is a process. Study is not like the end game. I don't think there is. You could attain enlightenment, and then theoretically, then you've gotten to the end of the goal of practicing yoga. But even like Jack Cornfield said, after the ecstasy, the laundry. Even those who attain enlightenment have to go back down. It's always a process. It's always this moment. And sometimes you don't need to have all of the answers. It's just what's going on here. And I don't know is a reasonable response. So, I might be. Yeah. And then also we were in practice and she reminded me of one of my favorite Iyengarisms, which is if you open your armpits, you will never be depressed. And I defy you to be in a bad mood with your arms lifted up like this. So we're gonna do lots of armpit opening because it's gray and weird and life is bizarre, and so we got some happiness here. So okay. So taking your index finger and your thumb together, we'll go from the center of the forehead outwards towards your temples. And then going from the sides of your nose out to your temples on your cheekbones. And tracing underneath your chin, gently stroking in and out. And then between the corners of your nose and the corners of your mouth, just press inwards for a moment. And then when you take your fingertips behind your ears, lift up and open your elbows so you've got your open armpits. And you can massage still in there. You can still lift up from that point behind your ears. And then go ahead and keep your hands up. You can like place them on your head if that's a little bit easier than holding them up, but trying to, again, keep your armpits open because, why not? I don't know if I fully buy into the old 70s yoga gurus saying that this will totally cure depression, but again, I defy you to be in a bad mood like this. Taking just a few more deep breaths. And bringing your hands down into your heart. And take a really big breath in through the nose. Big exhale through your mouth. Again, like that. For 3 ohms. Ah. 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 Hmm. And then as you open your eyes, if you've been sitting up on anything, as we tend to, go ahead and bring that off to your side and then take your legs out in front of you so that you're just sitting up, and take your arms and lift them up. You're gonna grab onto your elbows. If it's hard to hold elbows, just hold onto your wrists, especially we'll do this a couple of times so it doesn't have to get right there. But try to pick your elbows up from your outer armpits. And you can even put a little bit of a rounding in your spine if that's a little bit easier in your back. And then the space in between your arm bone and your neck bone, the front of your shoulder, try to relax that. And then you're gonna release your arms, take your right hand onto your side and then reach your left hand out. And go ahead and kind of like roll over into your hip. Yeah, I'm kind of like pushing myself over, um, like if I'm not quite even on my seat. Yeah. And then let that shoulder blade roll forward a little bit more. And then pick yourself up, just take both arms up and notice how different it can be. And then take your left hand down and reach over. And I have a little bit of like shifting my weight over towards the right side. Let the shoulder blade come forward just ever so slightly. One more exhale. And then coming up and grabbing onto your elbows again and then lifting upwards. And you can put, like I said, a little round in the back is okay here, just to keep from straining anything, and try to soften the insides of your armpits. So it kind of lets the outsides of the armpits come forward a little bit more. And then release your hands down. Take the fingertips back behind you, lift your chest up. You can look up, try to draw the shoulder blades back so your heart comes forward a bit more. Big breath in. And then exhale, softening. And we're going to come down onto our backs for a bit. I'm going to bring your block with you, but we won't use it quite yet. I'll turn the lights off for just a few moments. There. So take your feet and you're going to wiggle both of your feet over towards the right side. They're a little uneven, and then let your knees roll over towards the left. So you're not quite twisted. Yeah, just letting them fall down. And then you're going to take your left hand and bring it back behind your head. So you just kind of bend into your elbow and put your hand behind your head. And then, and then just scooch that elbow over towards the right a little bit more. So you might like pick your head up and scooch it over a little bit. Yeah. And then try again to soften your inner shoulder. Yeah, your inner armpit space. And then go ahead and release your arm from behind your head and then take your legs up. And then you're going to scooch, instead of having your feet over towards the right, you're going to scooch your feet over towards the left and then let your knees drop down over towards the right. And then from here, you might take your, it's the right arm now behind your head. And then you might scooch your head over towards the left a little bit and let your head rest back. One more exhale. And then unwind your arm and then bring your legs up. Go ahead and take your feet back into the center and then hold on to the back of your right leg. And let your right leg become nice and soft in the hip crease. And then start to wiggle your left foot a little bit further out in front of you. So you're going to extend that leg a little bit longer. You might start to press out through the sole of your left foot. So you're a little bit more active in the left leg, and then a little bit softer if you can in the right leg. One more breath out. And then bring your left leg in and set your right foot down. Thinking as soft and relaxed as possible in the left hip. And then starting to wiggle your right foot out a little bit in front of you or getting the leg towards straight. And then maybe extending that right leg out, actively lengthening it away from you as you soften into your left hip. One more exhale. And then take both legs in, give yourself a little squeeze, maybe a little rock around. And then we'll go ahead and grab the block. Set your feet down. So you can just rest your feet down on the mat, and then take the block above your face so that you're holding it. Your hands are on the smallish sides. So it's kind of wide there. And then bend your elbows a little bit so that you're sure that they're facing away from you. And then if you wanted to start to straighten the elbows a little bit more, you could. You're going to reach the block up towards the ceiling as you feel your belly and your heart moving down towards the floor. And then keeping your belly and your heart moving down towards the floor, you're going to try to reach the block, not to the floor, but to the wall behind you. So you're going to reach it back. It's getting a little bit longer in those shoulders, and then take the block back up above your face. And then reach the block up and back. Inhale, exhale, taking the block back up above your face. And doing it again, reaching rather than trying to get it to the floor, and then taking it back up. And then you're going to lift your knees up above your hips. And we're going to do this thing with the block again. Go ahead and reach it towards the wall behind you, keeping your belly and your heart towards the floor, and then take the block back up. And do that one more time, reaching the block back. And then take it back up above your face. Now you're going to take your left leg and press it out away from you. So probably nowhere near the floor because it's going to get way harder that way, but you can reach it up in the air, and you're going to reach the block back towards the wall behind you. And then take the block back up above your face, and just one more, just on the other side, just one round through. So I'm extending the right leg and then reaching. Yeah, it's a little shaky. And then take the block back up, and then go ahead and set both feet down and set your block off to the side. That was our long, strong core work for the day. Extend your legs out, reach your arms back, make your body nice and long. I'm going to open your feet out about the width of your mat. Open your arms out about the width of your mat. So you've just got your legs just flop down on the floor. And then you'll keep your right leg where it is. Just put your left leg on top of it. So scoot. Now I have both feet that are kind of over towards the right. And then I'll move my left arm over towards my right arm and then hold on to that hand. Yeah. I've got a little banana shape. One more exhale. And then unwinding, coming back to that little X shape. And then go ahead and drop the right leg over the left leg. Move the right arm over towards the left arm and give it a little pull. One more breath out. And then come back to the center and roll yourself over onto one side. It doesn't matter which side it is. We'll talk about top leg and bottom leg. I'm going to turn the lights back on. Oh, it's abrasive. Okay. So you've got your top leg, and you're just going to grab it and pull it in. You can hold on maybe behind your knee if that's comfy to you. And you can leave the bottom leg just wherever it feels comfy. So as you're lifting this knee up, what tends to happen when we have this leg open to the side is that the thigh bone comes up into the top of the hip, and you might feel kind of crunchy and squishy on the outside of your top hip, right? Like it's a little shorter in the waist. So instead of letting the thigh bone lift up, your hip socket's really big. You're going to drop your thigh bone down to the bottom of your hip socket. You guys get what I mean by that? It's like kind of dropping it, and you feel a little bit more spacious in that lower back space. And if you wanted to try to extend the leg, it doesn't have to get straight, but just trying to keep the thigh bone down in the bottom of the hip socket, and then relax it, and then roll over to the other side. And we'll take our top leg up. And you can even play around with that positioning a little bit. You can let it lift up and then try to drop the thigh bone down. Just kind of noticing there's a lot of space to examine in there. And then if you get it down, you're like, okay, let's see about straightening the leg or pretending to straighten the leg or imagine the leg is straighter. Yeah. And then relaxing that leg. You can roll back to your back just to give yourself a little boost up to a seat. And then take your legs out in front of you again. And we're going to take the arms up and hold on to the elbows and reach up a little bit taller. This time, try to avoid the rounding. Try to stay up and then engage your feet. And my legs are extended. My whole body is lifting up right towards my elbows. And then the inner armpits might try to soften a little bit more. One more big breath in. And exhale. Relax your feet and your arms. And we're going to come onto our hands and knees for just a brief moment. You're going to slide your right foot towards the back of your mat. And then you have to adjust your left foot over towards the left. And then take your right arm up. Yep. You can even just, if you want to keep both hands down, you can just turn your hip up. Switch arms, Kathy. Yeah, the right arm. And then if you're able to scooch your right foot behind you a little bit more, you can go for that. And then you can get the hips and the heart maybe a little bit more open. And then make some circles in your right arm. Just moving it around. Yeah. Then reach it up again. Take a big breath in. And then go ahead and take both hands down. Bring your legs back in. And then switch to the other side. You'll want to move your right foot out to the right. Put your left foot at the back of your mat. And then take your left arm up. And then if you can scoot your left foot back just a little bit more, you might be able to get a little bit more space open in the front of your hip. And then you can move that arm around in circles, just loosening up and feeling around that joint a little bit more. Lift the arm all the way up. Take a really big breath in. And as you exhale, gently return yourself back onto your hands and knees. You can walk your knees back and your hands forward and then come down all the way onto your belly. And then take your hands out a little bit wider than you might usually and come up onto your fingertips. So you've got this big wide space. And just lift up for a couple of cobra poses, nice and low. Inhale, lifting up. Exhale, lowering. And one more like that. And then take your arms and reach them back with your palms facing towards each other. Get your fingertips really excited, maybe even wiggle them around a couple of times to make sure. And then stretch the hands back and the heart forward. Maybe you lift your feet up. That's just an option. And then you're going to try to stay up and reach your arms forward. And then take them back and maybe your chest gets a little bit higher. Yeah. And then relaxing down. Bring your hands in under your shoulders. You're going to push yourself back up onto your knees. Leave your hips above your knees, come down onto your elbows. If you want to walk your elbows forward at all, you can. You might bring your hands together And then let your thumbs come towards the back of your head. That'll be a little bit more intense in the shoulders, but that's another option that you could take. One more breath out. And then if you bent your arms, go ahead and bring the hands back down. You're gonna walk yourself up, and we're gonna press up in a downward facing dog. So pushing from those armpits down into your hands. Coming up, walking through your heels and your hips a little bit. And then bringing your feet towards your hands and your hands towards your feet. Bend your knees so you feel really good about this fold. If you want to catch opposing elbows and give yourself a little rag doll, you could do that, or you can keep your hands on your legs if that feels more supportive to you. And then release your elbows. Go ahead and walk your hands up your body, coming up to standing. Good. I'm gonna switch this a little bit so I don't disappear. Okay. Okay. Let's take the right foot forward and just come into warrior one. So you'll take your arms up. You've got that little bend in your right leg. It doesn't have to be a really deep one. We're going to bend the left elbow, hold on to it, and reach the left elbow up. So it'll be right here. So I'm getting that up nice and tall. And try to soften that inner shoulder space. And then release that elbow. Take your arms back behind you. You could hold on to your hips, or you could interlace your fingers behind your back. Give your leg a little rest from the bend, and then go back into the bend. And you're going to pull your right hip towards your back foot, and then take your heart forward. Like you're going to try to get your heart right up above the top of your foot. Good. One more exhale. And then pick yourself back up. Straighten the leg and give it a little rest. Release your arms. And swing your arms a little bit back and forth. You're going to bend back into the front knee. Take your arms up, interlace your fingers, and place them behind your head. Now, before you rest your head back, pick your heart up. So you're using that length in your spine and your strong core that we worked on. And then you're just going to start to relax the head back into your hands. Maybe you think about areas of the armpits that you could lengthen or soften. You can play around with it, or you might notice something. You might just notice that this is very strange. One more exhale. And then go ahead and pick your head up. Release your arms down. Actually, take the hands to the heart and see if you can take one step up to standing. And then move your right foot back, coming into warrior one on the other side. So taking your arms up. We've got the right leg back, so it's the right elbow that'll bend here. You'll hold on to it and then lift that elbow up. The more you push into your back foot, the more that you'll open up the front of this hip. One more exhale. And then lift yourself back up. Release your arms. Straighten your front leg for a moment to give it a little rest. And you can bring your hands behind you or onto your hips. And as you bend back into the left leg, keep pulling the left hip towards your back foot, or keep thinking of drawing the thigh bone into the back of your hip socket. And then take your heart forward over your foot. Maybe even still breathing. One more exhale. And then lifting yourself back up. Go ahead and straighten your front leg. Take the bend out of it. Give it a little release. And then let your arms glide forward and back. I'm going to take the bend back into the front knee. Reach your arms up. Lift your heart up. Keep the heart lifted. Put your hands back behind your head. You could also bring the palms together and try to get the thumbs into the back of your head. So it's a little bit closer in the elbows, a little bit tighter in the shoulders. So you could still just do the open elbows. That works too. One more exhale. And then go ahead and pick your head back up. Bring your hands into your heart. Take one step up to the front of your mat. And if anything got stiff or weird, you can wiggle it. You're going to take your hands, bring the backs of your hands in so your elbows are up, and then just let your let them relax. They're not going to go much of anywhere, but yeah. And then take your arms behind your back. Try to grab opposing elbows. Grabbing opposing wrists is also good. You're just going to draw those elbows down and lift your chest up. And then I'm going to take your hands into the back pockets and lift your chest up. Draw those elbows down. This one's going to be a little bit harder, is to put your fingertips up and your wrists down. And if you widen it a little bit, that might feel a little bit better than trying to get your hands all the way back here. And then go ahead and release, wiggle your fingertips out a little bit. You're going to take your pinky fingers into your waist. And then maybe you wiggle the wrists a little bit further down. Maybe your hands come together. Maybe you're just going to hang out with the pinky fingers kind of into your waist here. And then give another little extra lift into your chest. And then release your arms. Go ahead and shake your fingers out because that was a lot for the wrists. And then you're going to take your right leg forward and your left foot back. Lift your arms. If you can be on the back heel, you'll just have a little bit less range of motion that way, but your balance might be a little bit easier. Make your back leg really strong. And then you're going to reach your right arm back and take your left arm forward. And really reach that left arm forward. So you might get a little bit further over that leg. Yeah. Try the opposite arm, Tom. Yeah. Really reaching to the left side. And then unwind it all into warrior two. So once you find, I'll just turn around so I'm facing you guys. We're going to come from warrior two. We're going to come into peaceful warrior. And then straighten the front leg and come out into triangle pose. And just so like a little one, not quite all the way, because we're going to go in between peaceful warrior, lifting up, bending into your front knee, and then coming into triangle and just like a halfway into your triangle so it's not too weird to go between. And keep going. Inhale, peaceful warrior, lifting your heart. Exhale, triangle. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. And then standing yourself up. We're going to come and stand a step forward and then move the other foot back. So come into that high lunge, or you can have your back heel down. So warrior stance is fine too. Oh my gosh, my balance. Okay. So taking your arms up. Back leg is really strong. And then you're going to reach opposite arm forward. Yep, so this should be, if your right leg is back, it's your right arm that goes forward. Yeah. You want to try to reach out really long through the right arm and back really far through the right foot. And then unwind it all and come into warrior two on the other side. Yeah. Just do a little hop around. So lifting your heart up, peaceful warrior. And then straighten the leg and shift yourself forward into triangle. And then lifting up, bending the knee, lifting your heart, peaceful warrior. Exhale, triangle. Two more. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And then lifting yourself back up and just turn all of your toes out to the wide side of your mat. Come down into a fold. Go ahead and bring your fingertips wherever it feels good to you. You want to have your toes facing forward, maybe even a tiny bit in, if that feels okay on your feet. Yeah. And if you want to tuck yourself in a little bit more, if you've got the space for it, you can do that. But just kind of relaxing here. Maybe you start to feel the weight a little bit more in your toes than your heels, and maybe your tailbone starts to lift up gently. One more exhale. And then bringing your hands back in to your body, lifting yourself up. We're going to take another triangle pose. Just go ahead and bring your toes maybe towards the back of your mat, or it doesn't matter. Pick a side. Turn your toes all the way over. Shift your hips back, and then come a little bit further into your triangle this time. Can you push down a little bit more into your feet? And sometimes pressing more into the front foot is going to get your hamstring more open. Pressing more into the back foot might get your hip a little bit more open. Pressing into either feet might be really hard and strange, and you're not really sure what you feel. Maybe that top shoulder opens just a little bit more so your heart is a little bit more spacious. And you'll take that hand back to your hip, lift yourself up. And then switch your feet so that you're on the other side. And shift the hips back and come down into triangle pose. And as you come into triangle pose, you're going to get this arm up. Try to reach from both armpits into both hands, because we have this tendency to kind of come down into that bottom arm. I want to try to keep those spaces open. And checking in with the weight in your feet, and how does it feel different if you focus on one thing or the other? How does it impact your breath? Just asking those questions, because that's part of the practice. One more exhale. And then taking your hand back to your hip, lifting yourself up. And then bringing your feet in. Okay. Take your block with you. I'm gonna go, we're gonna do some standing balancing. I would recommend coming near a wall just to start off with, because we're gonna stand on the block. So set it down on its normal space there. And you're just gonna put one foot into it. If you want to keep the other toes on the ground, that's fine. But you can feel, I think, a little bit more how much you have to push down into this block to stay up, right? Like I can sink into that hip, or I can really push down and get up just a little bit higher. And then if you're feeling a little frisky and you wanted to take your hands to your heart, maybe one hand onto a wall, maybe you get your toes up and feel that lift, and then let it go, because we're going to do a harder, weirder thing, but we won't do it on the block. So just do the block on the other side. Do you feel that? Like there's that, you have to like push down in order to, okay. So it's the little inquiry. Maybe you try a little balance with the toes up. And then go ahead and come down. And so that was the prep. That's how we feel that getting up on top of the joint. When there's two thigh bone and the hip socket things that we're going to do. The standing leg, you don't want the thigh bone to come to the back of the hip socket, because you see how I kind of tilt forward there, and then I can't really lift this because it's behind me, it's not underneath me. So it's you want the thigh bone to come forward in the hip socket on the standing leg, so that you can get that lift and you got all of this stuff working, and that's when it starts to get really sore. So that's the standing leg. And then the lifted leg, when we were laying down, and it's like, take the leg, and you don't want to have it like lifted up. See, like it kind of comes up here. I want to drop it down to the bottom of the hip socket. And that's also when I can lift this up, because if I do this, I can't. I got to do this thigh bone goes down and this up. Okay. Aren't you glad I didn't have you hold the pose while we talked about? My teacher will do that. She's like, okay, here we go. And then I'm going to like go on a lecture about it. Oh my gosh. All right. Okay, so pick a leg. You're going to stand on that one. You're going to get up into the front of your hip socket there, and you're driving that foot down into the floor, just like you would be if you were holding, or if you were up on the block. And then you can hold behind your thigh, because you want to keep it open. Or if you can hold your toes, you could try that too. But then notice the tendency to let the heart drop down. You got to push down in that standing foot. If you're feeling really fancy, you can lift up this arm so that your armpit is lifted and your heart is lifted. Good, yeah. And then go ahead and relax that leg down. Little wiggle. Good. So shifting to the other side, you're gonna take this leg up. We're gonna take it open today. You can hold your ankle, you can hold behind your knee, you can hold your fingers at your toes. And you gotta get up and forward, driving this foot down. Maybe you take the arm and lift it up and you feel your heart lifting up and you get up really, really tall. And then gently release your arm and your leg. I'm very sore from teaching this like 3 times yesterday, so you'll think of me tomorrow when you're trying to like go upstairs. So, but you feel like you kind of like get forward, and then we have this like open out. Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana, extended hand to big toe posture. I talk about that a lot. It's like you have to get like this lifted and open place in the shape. Yeah. Yeah. I feel it like once you get up here, because I can hold my leg up. That's no big deal. But to really get up and lift it here. Yeah. Neat. I love it. And I'm like, oh, of course I can stand on my toes for days. It's great. Okay, kind of fun. Good. Would we like to sit down? Yes. It's coming down to a seat. Oh. Okay. Just taking one leg out in front of you. We'll take the other leg bent in, and then you might think of that thigh bone coming in because that'll let your pelvis tilt forward. Does that not make sense? Oh, not bending. Yeah, just do one leg at a time. But if you've got your leg bent, thigh bone in, because it might help your pelvis to tilt forward and then come out into a fold. Yeah. And it doesn't need to be a deep fold. Never does. One more exhale. And then walk your hands back in. You're going to switch legs. So I'll take this one out, draw the other one in perhaps, and then letting the pelvis come forward, letting the body come out over that leg. One more exhale. And walking it back up, taking both of the legs forward, bringing your fingertips back. If you bring your thumbs forward and your fingertips back and draw those elbows back, you might feel a little bit more open in your chest. And we're just staying up and not putting pressure into the wrists there. Big breath in. And then exhale, relax. You're going to take your hands and maybe walk your body forward over your legs or bring your hands forward and come out into a fold, and just being real gentle with yourself. We've been doing primarily back bends, primarily heart opening, haven't done a lot to relax in this direction. One more exhale. And start to bring your hands back in. You're going to take your right leg and bend it in from on the big toe side of my foot. And then the front leg, I'm just going to fold it in. And I can lean over here. I can push this hip up to release the front of my right thigh. Maybe coming down onto an elbow, but just keeping this knee down. Yeah. And even like, yeah, rather than coming back, maybe just turn away from the leg. That might feel a little bit better. Like you don't have to bend it as much. The other way. Yeah. Yeah. Twist that way. Does that feel okay? Okay. A little bit less pressure there. And there might be, if you're kind of laying back, if you let your belly soften back, it's going to lengthen this just a little bit more. So for me, that really starts to get into, like, the very belly of the quad right here in the center. One more exhale. And then if you're back, you can take your right hand over to get the hands towards each other. We'll walk up, and then you're gonna switch the legs. So have your right shin forward and your left shin comes back. Just make sure your foot isn't in super close to you. And then you can lean back. You can lean over to the side if that's going to be a little bit less intense on your knee joint. If it feels good to go back, you're welcome to go back. Try to leave that knee down. Let the hip lift up. Letting the hip lift up is totally fine and good there. One more exhale. And then start to bring your hands over so both of them are on the same side. Walk yourself up. And then you're going to bring both feet in and the knees out. And you can stay out pretty wide or tuck them in a little bit closer to you and then do a little bit of flesh adjustment so that the sits bones are down a little bit more. And then draw your body forward. You can let your back round. You can let yourself soften inwards here. Just make sure you're not hunching back to give that general forward space. Big breath in, big breath out. And start to lift yourself up. We're going to come down onto our backs. Change the lights again. We're going to go straight up into bridge pose. So sliding your heels in by your hips, arms down by your sides, wiggle the shoulders underneath your heart, and then push your hips up into the air. You might be able to wiggle your shoulders a little bit more. You might hold hands. You might hold onto your hips. Try to push into all four corners of each of your feet, reaching the kneecaps forward. And then relax your shoulders and gently come on down. Do a little bit differently. You're going to reach your arms back behind you, and they could be more in a Y shape than train tracks. That's okay. But try to push the backs of the arms down and push into your feet and lift up into bridge pose. Just a little bit different. One more breath in. And then gently release the hips down. You're going to move the arms back down by your sides and then go up one more time into bridge. Push your hips up, give that extra wiggle around of your shoulders. You might feel a little bit more room to lift up after having done this a few times. One more breath in. And then relax your shoulders and take your hips on down. Bring your knees into your chest. Give yourself a little squeeze, rock around a little bit. And then let both of your arms open up and take your knees over towards the right side. Just coming into a twist that feels good to you. If you want to wrap the legs up a little bit extra for more twisting, you can do that, or you can just stay nice and simple. Give your left shoulder permission to relax. One more breath out. And then bringing your legs over towards the other side, finding the opposite twist. Releasing your right shoulder. Maybe it helps to think of releasing the armpit. That might change how it feels or change the energy around that shift. One more breath out. And then coming back to the center, I'm gonna give yourself another little hug. And then I hate to say it, but we are gonna have to get up because we're gonna take a little bit of a field trip here. We're gonna go to legs up against the wall. So start to bring yourself up to a seat. And then you're gonna wanna bring the short end of your mat against a wall or the cabinets. That's what that word is. Those work also really well. I'm gonna scooch over towards this little pillar. Is that also a good one? And the thing is, when you get into this, you have to like you'll end up farther away from it than you think you will be. So you gotta get like right up against tush against the wall or the cabinet, wherever you happen to be. Gotta get right in there. And then as you come down, you might be able to scooch a little bit and then take your legs right up it. And you can have bent knees. They don't have to be straight, especially if you're feeling like your hamstrings are very tense in this place. And then just go ahead and let yourself settle in. I'm sorry that there's no, crazy statues above us to stare at, but I know. I should have put little sticky notes on the ceiling or something. Oh man, one day I'll have that prepared. If you start to feel a little too tingly in the feet or lightheaded at all, then just bend your knees and bring them in towards your chest. But if you can hang out here for a little bit longer, we'll be here for just a few more minutes. And if you wanted to stay here longer, you're welcome to. But if you're ready to start coming out of this, just let your feet slide down so that your knees come in towards your chest. And then you can gently roll yourself over. And if you need to, slide yourself back onto the mat, you can hang out where you're at, moving into Shavasana. But take your time getting that set up and shifted and choosing just how you want to rest, just how you want to set yourself up. and enjoy. I think I'll misquote it a little bit, but there's a Mary Oliver poem that speaks to this idea of just being open to feeling and self-studying and questioning. She says, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk for miles on your knees repenting. You just need to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." We can allow this practice and allow this experience of being human to be a series of questioning, a willingness to examine rather than an insistence that we have to have all of the answers. So as you start to examine this body a little bit more in depth, maybe breathing a little bit, maybe moving a little bit more, you start to eventually roll yourself over to one side, pausing for a moment of gratitude for coming into practice today. And then eventually finding your own version of a comfortable seat. Bringing your hands in at your heart, lifting your heart up, and sealing the practice by releasing an Om together. Big breath in. Om. Bowing down to the love and light that resides within each of our hearts. Namaste. Hmm. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. And let me know how your armpits feel. Bye, Ruth. Thank you.